All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the second and final webinar for NCE procurement sourcing users for the new eVP. Just a disclaimer about this webinar, it is a Teams live session, meaning that it is being recorded. So if you do not consent to being included on this recording, then this would be a time for you to exit this session. But the good thing about a recording is that we will, in the near future, post this and make it available to you so you can come back and look at it, what you may have missed. But hopefully you are sticking around. And as we get into this, just want to be clear about who the intended audience is for this webinar. So this is for procurement users who currently use North Carolina procurement sourcing tool to manage your solicitation. And that is going to be state agencies. So if you're a community college user, a state college user, a local educational authority or local government, you do not at this time have access to e-procurement sourcing. You post your solicitations in a different manner, and we have another session for you coming up on July 6th. So we would encourage you to, if you haven't been to any of our two previous ones, that you join us on July 6th for the last one that will be more applicable to you. But if you do use e-procurement sourcing, this is a session for you, and we will move forward. So some logistics now that we hopefully have the right people in the audience. This is a Teams Live event, and you'll notice that there is going to be no option for you to actually speak during this event. There is a Q&A, so you should see a Q&A icon in the top right of your Teams screen, maybe just to the left of the red leave button. We don't want you to leave, though. But in that Q&A, if you click on it, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions, and we would certainly encourage you to ask a lot of questions as we go through with things. Now, I think there are two fields in which you can enter a question. The bottom field's for the actual question, and the top field is for a name. And we would encourage you to put a name in there. Otherwise, we get the questions coming through to us as anonymous, and if there are dozens of anonymous people in there, it is much harder to go back and forth and maybe better answer your question if a follow-up is needed. So please put a name and then ask your questions. We will be able to answer some of those questions directly to you in the Q&A. Some of those questions might be great for everyone to see, so we'll publish them for everybody to see, the questions and the answers. We will be taking times during the presentation to stop and maybe verbally answer some of those questions. And then some of the questions, just due to the amount of participants and the number of questions, we may not get to during this session in one of those ways, but we are taking down all of the questions and creating answers for those questions, and very soon, along with making the recording available to you, we will be publishing written answers to every single question we get, whether we've answered them already or not. So that is just a little bit of the logistical part to kind of get everyone set up and expectations. My name is Jeff. I will be kind of kicking us off with an introduction and then doing a little bit of the first demo. And then I'm going to turn it over to Zach from our team. He's going to take you through the majority of the rest of the demo. And we've got a few members of our team, Lauren, Amanda, and Afua, that are going to be monitoring that Q&A. So those are the names that you'll see and the faces that you'll see during this webinar. So let's get into what we plan to cover today. So what we're going to do, we're going to start off with just an overview of what we're calling the new eVP. So let's talk about what the project entails, the timing of that, and how that's going to impact you as state procurement users, and then some just general information there. Then what we're going to do is we're going to introduce what we're calling the back end of the eVP, because there's a public side and the state user side, the back end. And for your interaction with it, it will be called the agency app. We're going to just give you a little bit of an introduction on the navigation of that. Then I'm going to turn it over to Zach, and he's going to take you through the demo. So we're going to talk about solicitations to start. And as e-procurement sourcing users, you are still going to, whether your approvers are in DIT or PNC, you're going to start your sourcing project. You're going to follow the tasks to get your approvals. You're going to get to the point where you create your sourcing event. All of that is basically going to be the same, except for one big change that we think you're going to really, really, really like, which involves the suppliers page. And so Zach is going to show you that and do a big review, and that's going to be great. But we want to make sure you understand that you are still doing the sourcing project and approvals, and the sourcing event are still going to be the same. It's going to then import automatically, part of the big reveal, over into the agency app so that you can see part of it there. And we're going to show you how that works. And then we're going to show you, Zach's going to show you how that is going to automatically post on the public side of things. So what you used to do in IPS is now much of that is automated, and it will be now posting to what the new eVP is. So we're going to get into all of that. And then Zach's going to cover creating addendums, still going to happen in your sourcing event, except that the big thing there is any addendums are going to automatically post over into the new eVP or your old IPS, which is going to be great. So we'll go through that whole process of creating and managing your event and how it's going to interact with the new system. Then we're going to get into, he'll show you bid tabulations, award notifications, contract extensions. All those things are now going to be done. The contract extensions, if you go do those through the contracts approval tool, those will automatically update as well. But bid tabulations, award notifications, the way that you have been doing those in IPS, that's going to change now. But the interface it's a new interface, but I think you're going to like. It's a much more modern application to that. And then Zach's going to take you through just kind of the vendor side of things, how they're going to see things, and how you can look for vendors, the public vendor search, like you have access today. And then for some of you, this won't apply to everybody, but for some of you that handle hub reporting on a quarterly basis, that is now being brought into the system, and a lot of that is automated too. And so Zach will show you that at the end, but that may not apply to everybody here. And we'll wrap up with some next steps and all that. So that is what we have on the agenda today. So without further ado, let me get into kind of describing what the new eVP is, so that you kind of get a sense of the changes to come. So you can see here we've got some descriptions of various parts of the upgrade, but just at its most basic level, this new eVP is a merging of the current IPS system that you use to post notification of your formal bids, and then the electronic vendor portal, or eVP. So as you know, IPS, that is where you are going to go, or that you go currently to let vendors know that there is a formal solicitation that they can bid on, so that everyone has an opportunity for fair bidding for spending state money. So that is your current IPS system. That is now getting rolled into what we're calling eVP. And eVP, the current version of eVP, the electronic vendor portal, that's where vendors have gone to register their businesses to do business with the state of North Carolina and identify the contacts on their businesses and where purchase orders are going and what commodity codes they want to be notified of when a new solicitation opportunity is announced. So all of that is getting rolled into one, which bringing together your side of things, the posting, and their side of things with managing their account and responding is really going to be a nice improvement. And it's just going to bring a lot of kind of going to make the connection between buyers and suppliers a lot better. You'll see there's also, we're bringing in the hub office and the North Carolina SBE office, and they are going to have the ability to streamline the certification of vendors who apply for those certifications. That's going to impact hub reporting as well, which you'll see. So kind of bringing everything together is going to be really good for everybody involved. Now, just a little bit of technical stuff here. This new application is being moved to the Microsoft cloud. So IPS has been great for the state for however many years it has been serving it, but it is older technology and it has limitations. By moving to the cloud, we're going to get far longer data retention aspects here. We're going to have a lot better. It's just going to be a lot more flexible as far as the way that the technology can work, and you'll see that with this automatic posting. We could never do that in the old IPS system, but in this new system with automatic posting, which is going to be a great thing, that interaction is enabled because we're going to stronger, more powerful bit of technology. So that's sort of an overview of what is happening where we are combining IPS and eVP into one supersized app. And this next slide is just going to be a visual representation of it, just to kind of give you another way to look at it. So we'll start over here, the left side, the public eVP. So eVP, as it exists right now, has just been on this side. It's just vendors. And this is vendors are still going to register there. They're still going to manage their account preferences. And they're still going to apply for Hub and NCSBE certifications there. They could do all that now. But what is improved for them is with the Hub office being involved in this now, there's a lot more, there will be a more efficient and a more transparent certification process, which is great for them. But the other thing is this bid notifications and submissions. Instead of managing their account here in eVP and then going to IPS on a whole other system to see the notifications of bids and to respond to them or to link to them, it's all happening in the same place. So we've removed a site that vendors have to go to. So I think that's going to be really nice. And vendors now have all of their bids that they've bid on and all of their awards that they've been awarded in these different tabs on their account. So it's a really nice, more efficient way for vendors to handle things. There is still literally a public side of the public eVP. That's where you can go ahead and look up vendors and various aspects of their account. We'll show you here in a second that you now, because these are joined, you have an internal on your backend side vendor search, which once you get into the system, you'll decide whether you like to look up vendor information in the backend or in the public side. But this public search will still be there, as well as being able to see anybody has the ability, whether you're registered or not, to be able to see all the solicitations and contract extensions that have been posted out there. So that's the public side, which is basically that exists now. It's just being enhanced. And the new part is bringing in this back end. And you'll see here that there's state procurement users. That's you. There's also DOA, PNC. They're going to have access with a little bit more administrative ability. And then the Hub office and NCSBE office will have their access with the ability to process in a much more efficient and online manner these Hub certifications. So PNC is going to be used what's called the admin app. Hub will use the Hub app. And you guys, what you will see when you log in is called the agency app. The interface is all the same. There's just slightly different permissions that various roles have, which makes sense. You wouldn't be able to do the same thing that PNC or Hub could do. But for you right here, a couple things. So this will be kind of your new IPS. And so you will post notification of your solicitations here. Your bid openings will not take place here. That is more for the other agency users like community colleges and local LEAs. You are still going to be doing your bid opening in e-procurement in your sourcing event, but the solicitation and any addendums, and Zach's going to take you through that you put into e-procurement sourcing will automatically come here and be able to post publicly so that vendors can respond, which is going to be great. The same thing, that automatic posting is going to work for contract extension. We'll talk about that at the end. If you have to negotiate kind of a special contract extension, not a renewal that you've already kind of agreed upon, but a special contract extension, and you get that approved by PNC now or DIT, they've both automated that process in the contracts tool. That will automatically post over here also. And then you'll see now there is going to be the greater visibility on the Hub side of things for your Hub statistics and filing all those. So that is what this is. It's kind of the new IPS for you, but it is connected much closer to vendors, and that connection is really going to make things a lot more just efficient for everybody involved. So that is kind of a visual view of that. And now I want to move into the timing of this transition, because we're getting very close to some of these important dates here. So the main thing, the go live date for this new system is going to be July 10th. And so that's just in a week and a half or so. You'll see here, we're on June 29th. The last day that you can post a new solicitation in the current IPS is going to be tomorrow. So if you have been working on something, and we know that you can't just overnight create a solicitation. You've got to go through sometimes weeks of getting your documents together and figuring everything out and making sure the budget's there, and then getting approval from DIT, PNC, however. So you've probably already been working on those. But the last day to post one in this new system until the new system goes live on July 10th, the last day to post one in the current system until you can do so again in the new system on July 10th is going to be tomorrow. I would suggest, or we would encourage that if you are just about to get one ready, you might just want to wait until July 10th and have it go into the new system. If you post one now, and you'll see down here that if you post one now, the last day for it to be opened, meaning that the bids are due, and then you can evaluate responses completely in IPS is going to be July 7th. So if you haven't posted it yet, you're probably not giving your vendor community enough time to respond next week, also especially considering there's a holiday in there. So if you do post one now, the earliest date that vendors will be able to you will be able to open bid responses is going to be July 17th, because we've got this blackout for posting, and we've also got a blackout for bid openings. And I think maybe if you've tried recently to post one, you'll notice that blackout window has already been enforced. So we've been trying to prepare people for a while for that. So if it is not urgent and does not need to have a bid due date by the 17th or 18th, you might want to wait until July 10th, and then so it starts and finishes in the same system, and you just have maybe into the July 20s for your opening. That would give enough time. If you have something that you've already posted that has a current bid opening date or due date after July 17th, that will be automatically converted over into the new system. So although it currently exists in IPS for people to respond to it now, or click a link to respond to it, because it would be that NCEP button. What is going to happen is that will be migrated during this downtime. Our team is going to take special care to make sure that we are converting all the data, but that will be migrated and then now be available on July 10th for whatever future bid opening date you have. So just be aware of that we will be converting those, and we will show you the new interface on how vendors are going to respond, since there will be no more discovery link that they click on. They will just get directly invited to your suppliers tab. And Zach's going to go over all of that special good news in a bit. But if you do have anything that is currently open and will not finalize before July 7th, that will be automatically migrated over into the new system. So even though you announced it here, the responses will be due over here. Responses still in the sourcing event, but the other parts of that, announcing the bid tabulations, all that will happen over here. So there's a lot of, perhaps, if you have specific confusion on a particular solicitation that you currently have, we'd encourage you, call the help desk and we can walk you through the specifics of your sourcing event and your IPS posting and how that's going to be reflected in the new system. So we've got our pause here for posting. We've got a pause here for bid openings. And then the last thing that we want to say is that our understanding, as it is now just for IPS in general, when that will go away, when that site will disappear from existence, the current understanding of that is going to be October 10th. So you can't post anything new after tomorrow, but if you've already kind of conducted a bid, announced a bid there, gotten your responses in your sourcing event, and you've got to post some tabulations and post awards for something that's already been closed out by 7/7, you will still be able to do that. It's our understanding that kind of the last day to post tabulations and awards will be August 10th, which would then keep it open in the system for 60 days until October 10th. And then as of now, and things could change, but if you tried to look for it on October 11th, it would be gone. But then going forward, anything that has not been closed out now, you'll do that in the new system. And the nice part about that is, as you'll see, with the greater flexibility for a kind of this cloud technology, is those awards and those tabulations, all that, that's going to stay up in the system for far longer than it has now, which is sometimes these tabulations and everything disappear after 90 days because the old system couldn't handle it. This is going to be up there for a while. You can be able to search for it with more than just the bid number, a lot of different things. And we know that a lot of people in the vendor community especially are very, very thankful of that. So that is a little bit about what is happening and the timing of that. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to talk to you about logging in and then give you a tour of the back end. But before we do that, were there any questions in the Q&A that we wanted to address kind of to the group right now about the overall project and the timing?
We don't have any questions currently. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, perfect. Thank you, guys. So let's talk now about logging in. So starting on July 10th, you will be able to go to the new system, and we will be, and I think there are certain people that we've targeted with early emails, but you'll get an email invitation to log into whatever the new URL will be. And as state workers who have been, for the last couple months or so, maybe switched over to multi-factor authentication, it will work the same way. So whether or not it's just signing into your computer in the morning via this, and then all of your applications that go along with this, you won't have to do it every time. But just know that as state workers, there is the multi-factor authentication. This is kind of what that screen looks like there. You should be used to that by now. Once you're in, this is what your screen looks like. And before, this is a PowerPoint slide. So I'm going to leave PowerPoint, go to the internet, and show you in our test environment what this is going to look like for you. So let me escape out of here and come on here. And before I go into that, I do just want to reiterate that, and I know a lot of you have can't see the exact names in the attendee list, but I'm sure we've worked together, or you've called the help desk and you maybe talked to Zach, who's going to take the screen over here in a little bit. We're still going to be supporting you through this, as we always have. So as I scroll down here, you can see we've got notifications, and it is on some of these links, some of these update pages where we will eventually post the videos and Q&As. But as I scroll down here, these will redirect on July 10th to the new site. So we've got our logins here. You'll probably see an additional login tab to get to the back end, your new agency app. So now that is more under the e-procurement direct supervision, whereas IPS was PNC managed that. Now it's coming, so we have a lot more visibility in it, and so we will be linking to that site from here. So the website will be updated to reflect that in time. We also, our training has been updated and is in the process of being finalized with updates. So we are still have our e-procurement sourcing training. And as we continue to do that, we've got some new things in there. So you're still going to be creating your sourcing project, and we're updating the publishing to reflect new changes, like no discovery anymore. But then we've got other things of viewing posted e-procurement solicitations in eVP. So once you create them in sourcing, now we'll have job aids that are supporting your kind of management of this in the back end and creating bid tabulations and awards, all of that stuff. So we're updating our job aids. And as we get further into the process, we'll have videos up there. So we will be building this out as we get closer. So you will have the support that hopefully you can build upon your current knowledge and build out other knowledge. But we are updating our sites to do that. We've also gotten, I believe, if you click down news and events, so the eVP upgrade buyers, it's on this site that when we get approval on the final Q&A and process our videos, you will find links to those videos, and that here will also, we get emails of everyone that attends. We get an attendance report for these, and we will, once those are up, we will email you that is up there. So that information is coming to you. And again, just to reiterate, and I'm sure most of you are very familiar with this, but our help desk. The solicitations, we're still option 3. We'll still get you to our help desk to help talk about e-procurement sourcing, and also to help talk about working through the new eVP agency app. And we've got our email address as well. So just be aware we are supporting that. We're supporting vendors as they get new opportunities. There are other states' procurement users who have a new system. We're supporting them too. So we are going to continue to support the entire procurement community here. And you know that you can always contact our help desk and we will work through things for you. So that's just a review of the helpful options you have if you need that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and give you a little bit of a tour of the agency app. So you'll see here agency app, and we're in the training environment. So this is a sandbox up there, so might be slight differences, but this is essentially what it's going to look like. I'm on the home page, so you see I'll click home, but it takes you to dashboards, and dashboards are kind of template set up. They're default dashboards that have been set up. You may or may not find them helpful to you, but one thing that you'll notice here, so this agency dashboard, and it says, okay, all the solicitation types that we have in the site here, that you can see your sourcing events are still going to be kind of controlled. The access to those is going to be controlled via the team tab, so you need to be on the team tab to see a sourcing event. But once you come over to the agency app, you'll see the primary solicitations you'll be able to see are the ones that you've created, a sourcing event you've created, but you will have visibility into seeing other solicitations, this type of the posting, not in the sourcing event, that other people in your agency, if your agency has multiple people that manage IPS, or what used to be IPS now will be converted over into eVP. So say there's 3, you work in DPI and there are 3 people in DPI that post solicitations, you'll be able to see as you scroll down, these aren't just my solicitations that are now pending selection. These are solicitations from a number of people that are pending selection. So there's some really nice visibility here that you will see, and this will be normal because your bid responses aren't coming through the system. They'll be coming through your event. So if you see a big red X under bids, that is normal for you. But this is the agency dashboard, and the home tab. You will figure out if this is helpful to you. But I'm going to go down. This is what we call our navigation panel, and I'm going to tell you, point out some helpful things here. So recent. So if I click on that, the last thing I looked at was my agency dashboard. So that's at the top of my recent. I think this is going to be really helpful. If you've got these are various solicitations that I have been looking at. And if it's helpful for me to go back and forth between those, I think it's great. Also, if there's one in particular that you really liked, and you can see this one has the unpinned next to it, you can pin it. So I'm going to go down to my pinned, and I've already pinned one, this eVP janitorial services that is due on July 6th. It's for another demo we're doing. But if I know that I need to be working with that one, I can pin it and not have to search for it every time. So I think you're really going to like that. So the recent and pinned is going to be helpful. We're going to skip dashboards again. I don't know how much help that's going to be, but this next part I think is going to be really nice for you. So vendors. So as I said, now that we've merged your end of the system with the vendor side of the system, you have an internal vendor search here. So we're in the test environment. So there's a lot of these things that don't have a lot of good data in them. But once we take all the existing vendors over from the old system into the new system, you'll have a lot more data here. But this is a listing of all the vendors that are registered that you could find in the public vendor search, which I think is a really nice thing. So if I want to say, what are all the vendors that have janitor somewhere in them? So I'm going to type janitor in there in my search field. And so and you'll see on various screens, the search box here will search the entire screen. This up top is a meta search, and it will search the entire app. If you're not on a specific screen and you want to find something within the entire app, it can bring back various results there. But I typed in, I always like to have an asterisk. I think it refines my search to specific letters, and I click forward. And what's going to happen now is I'm going to get a return of all of the vendors in the system that have, here's janitorial. So it's bringing all that back, which is really nice. I see this one, Amaze Clean. I don't see janitor in there. It might make sense that janitor's in there because it's a cleaning company, but you can click on these and see detailed information about the vendors. So you'll see here, you have read only, so you can't change anything, which is good. You don't want access to do that, but you've got these various tabs, and these tabs also live on the public vendor search. The same information is just displayed differently. So however you want to, whichever version of this vendor search works better for you, this internal one or the public one, when you need to find something out about a vendor, you will determine your preference. That's the nice thing, but now you have another option. I typed janitor in here, and I think where that's coming from is you can see in the website, janitor was in there. So this is a really powerful search. It's searching across a lot of data. So I think you're going to like that. And it's got, the vendor name and the last four of their social and different characteristics here. I think as we go through, there's going to be purchase order information, like how much is spent across the state on each vendor, which is really nice. And that's how we get these new really nice hub information for you that you'll see towards the end. But you can go the summary and you can look in contacts and see the contacts here and find more detail about the contacts. And then how many locations does the vendor have? So you can play with this once you get there, but just know that this vendor search, you now have the ability to search for vendors inside this app if you want to find specific information about them. And then contacts just lists all of the contacts across the state in one page. So if I can look for the contact within its vendor record, or I can just type in a name and find the contact and find which vendor that person's registered to. So that's what you'll see here with vendors, and I think that's going to be helpful. And then what we're going to do, the next part, and I'm not going to spend too much time here because Zach is really going to show you that, is going to be the bid management section. So you'll have access to see solicitations, and that's where when you create an event and you publish that event in Ariba, automatically it's going to port over here. You don't need the discovery anymore. Zach's going to show you the magic behind that, but that's going to be a really, really, really cool thing that now you have record of your solicitation here. And these are, this is solicitations I've done for other things, but Zach's going to show you better demos in a second. I won't click into them, but obviously you can click into them, find out more details, but you got the basic details and we've got the basic statuses, and he'll talk to you about that. And this also then will automatically publish over to the public side and the Hub Opportunity site. A lot of really cool automation stuff coming up here. And then he'll get into creating tabulations and awards, which you can do off of these solicitations. So I won't get too much into that. But the last thing that I will show you here on the kind of overview and the navigation of your new app is going to be this department management. So I think we are sending out on July 10th, we are going to say, hey, go to the new site, log in, make sure you can get in. Then make sure your department is set up correctly. So you'll come down here to this department section and there will be instructions in an email, and it's going to say, all right, make sure you're in the right department. So you would then come and find your department. And so what I would do here is I would type in department up at the top, and because down, the community colleges are listed first, but hey, if you're Department of Agriculture, you can click on here and you can see that this is how Department of Agriculture is set up. And we've got, kind of the, what we call, there's a purchasing support role and a purchasing officer role. And sometimes those are the same people, sometimes they're different people, but we're going to ask that when you log in, your agency is the right agency. And if you are in that agency, you should be able to edit that. So that's just something that we will ask you to do. Just want to point out where you will see that once you log into the system. So that is hopefully just a good summary of kind of how to navigate this. Zach's going to show you the real fun thing here in a second. But before I turn it over to him, was there anything that we wanted to address in the Q&A?
No, I think we're handling those questions as they come in.
Wonderful. Well, Zach, why don't you take it away and show them the magic of automatic posting?
Perfect. So like Jeff said, I'm going to take over the screen for now. And our first demo is going to be actually creating a sourcing event. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull up a sourcing project that I've already created. The reason why I already created it is because the actual process of creating a sourcing project isn't changing at all. So now that I'm in my sourcing project, I do want to share a couple of smaller changes that are happening in the system. So if I click on my Tasks tab, I expand phases 5 and 6 on my Tasks tab. You may notice that some of the names of these tasks have been slightly renamed. For example, like post-award notification to eVP and post-final bid tabulation to eVP have been updated to reflect eVP instead of IPS. And then also post-preliminary bid tabulation to eVP was also updated, since before it had IPS in the language. But the tasks themselves, like what you would actually be doing, isn't actually changing, just a slight name change. So now that that's done, we're going to actually get started. So I'm going to go to my Documents tab. I'm going to go ahead and start creating my sourcing event. And for the purposes of this demo, we're going to say that I've already gone through the necessary paths, or I've already gotten the necessary approvals for my sourcing event. So I'm actually going to create this, and then I'm going to post it as well, so you guys can see all of that. So again, nothing's really changing with creating the sourcing event. The only minor change is that the description will be visible on the public eVP side of things. So you'll definitely want to populate something in here, and populate something in here that is meaningful to vendors looking at the solicitation. But as far as the steps involved, you'd still give it a name, go over the description, make sure test event is set to no. These other fields will be pre-populated based off of the information put in while creating the sourcing project. And then I'm going to click this OK button. And so now we're on the rules section, and nothing on this section is actually changing. So I'm just going to do what we would normally do, which is scroll down to our timing rules and change it from duration to fixed time. And then I'm going to say, hey, you know what, we want to open this one up on July 20th, and we want to go ahead and open it at 2 p.m. And everything else looks good to me. So I'm actually going to go ahead and, as we do today, skip from section 1 to section 3 to our content section. And next I'm going to upload my solicitation document. So I'm going to scroll down in our content section to section 3.1, check the box next to 3.1, click the edit button, and click content. And then next I'm going to go ahead and update the attachment. So I'm going to click on update file, upload a file from desktop, and then choose file. And then now I'm going to find my completed solicitation document. Just double click on it and click OK, and done. So if it was necessary, I could keep going through this content section and adding or removing content as necessary for my solicitation. For the purposes of this demo, since that process is still the same as it is today, I'm going to say that I just needed to update my solicitation document and I'm actually good to go. So now I'm actually going to click back on section 2 for suppliers. And this is where our major change is happening. And this is actually a big change, and it's a good change. You'll notice that once I clicked on the suppliers page, we no longer have a discovery supplier posting page. We now have invited participants. So discovery suppliers is gone, and invited participants has replaced it. And the good thing about this section now is, instead of having to go ahead and post this sourcing event and then go to IPS and post it there, is that this section will cause the solicitation to automatically post onto public eVP. So you'll no longer have to post things multiple times, which is great. You do have to invite a participant. So to do so, you would click this Invite Participants button, and then you would search for your participant. So we've created the NC eProcurement sourcing user for this purpose. So I'm going to type in NC eProcurement sourcing, and then you'll notice in my search results that NC eProcurement sourcing appears, so I can check the box next to them, and then I can hit this blue OK button. Once I do that, NC eProcurement sourcing will show up in my invited participants. So this is what you should do for any solicitation that is following the normal path. However, if you are going through a solicitation that is like a waiver of competition or a sole source or a situation like that, instead of inviting the NC eProcurement sourcing user, you would actually directly invite the vendor that you're trying to send it to. But for most of the normal and the or the standard situations, you will use NC eProcurement sourcing. So I'm actually going to remove them and just show you guys that process one more time. So once you land on the suppliers tab, it will look like this. in your invited participants, there'll be no vendors listed. We'll select invite participants, and then we'll search for NC eProcurement sourcing. And then once we either hit this blue search button or we hit enter to start our search results will populate with NC eProcurement sourcing. And we'll go ahead and select the checkbox next to NC eProcurement sourcing and click OK. And then now that we actually have added this participant, we're good to go ahead and post. So remember, again, we're saying for the sake of this demo that we've already received the necessary approvals to post this solicitation. So now I filled out sections 1, 3, and 2. I'm on section 4. And I'm good to actually go ahead and click this blue publish button. And then I can click monitor event. And I think this is a good place to pause because this is honestly the biggest change on the sourcing side of things for creating this sourcing event. Were there any questions in the chat that we wanted to cover here?
Sorry, Zach, did you ask if there were questions?
Yes, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay, we have a question. Do vendors have to do more than register an eVP to be in eProcurement sourcing?
So to actually respond to a solicitation, they will have to register for an Ariba network account, just like they do today. But they won't have to actually do anything more than, if they're already registered in eVP today and they're already registered for eProcurement and they've created an Ariba network account, then they shouldn't have to register for any other systems. So if they're already kind of set up to respond to solicitations, they should be good to continue responding to them, assuming that all their accounts are still active. Do we have any other questions, Lauren, before we moved on?
We have several questions about around using the NC eProcurement sourcing vendor. How about sending out to all vendors, etc. So if you would like the solicitation to be publicly posted on eVP, similar to how it is done today in IPS, you should only use that NC eProcurement sourcing vendor. Would not recommend selecting all vendors that is not publicly posting it, as that only includes vendors that are currently available. And as you all know, there are vendors that may just happen upon the website and find the opportunity and didn't receive the notification initially to respond. So NC eProcurement sourcing should be used to mirror what you do in IPS today. And then there are special circumstances like waiver of competition where that process is a little different, but to publicly solicit NC eProcurement sourcing is the vendor that should be used.
Exactly. So this is if you're just following a run-of-the-mill sourcing situation where you just want this posted to as many vendors as are out there, then the only thing you need to do in the number 2 section in invited participants is add this NC eProcurement sourcing. And then it will post publicly to eVP and people will be able to publicly search for and see your solicitation. Alrighty, were there any other questions, Lauren, or can we move on now?
I think we're good to move on. Thanks, Zach.
Perfect. So we've been talking about how this solicitation will automatically post for you. So what we're going to do now is I'm actually going to pull up the backend eVP, and I'm going to pull up our solicitation specifically. So on the left-hand side on our navigation panel, I'm going to click on the solicitations option, and then I'm going to change this from my active solicitations to active solicitations. Because of the way our test environments are currently configured, I'm actually logged into the backend eVP app as a different user than I'm logged into the Ariba test scenario as. So for you guys, for solicitations that you create, they should show up here, assuming you're logged in both spots as yourself. But since I'm technically logged into the 2 spots as different users, they'll show up in my active solicitations. Because active solicitations will basically show all the solicitations that your entity has created. So I have my document number, so I can search for my solicitation by typing my document number into this search box up here, up in the upper right-hand corner, and then clicking enter. And then you'll notice that our solicitation populates, and like Jeff was saying earlier, you can click on the solicitation to actually view some more details about said solicitation. There's a documents tab, general tab that will show you just some of the general information about your solicitation. And then now we'll actually look at what it looks like on the public side. So this is the landing page for the public eVP. I'm currently not actually signed in as a vendor, so this is exactly what the public would see when looking at this website. And there are two spots where they can go to search for solicitations. They can either hit the solicitation option from this top menu up top, or they can hit this browse solicitations button. So I'm going to go ahead and hit browse solicitations. And then you'll notice that we're now on a solicitation search screen and that we have this filters option. So people can come to the solicitation screen, expand this filters option, and then we'll have a wide variety of filters that they can use to search for solicitations in the system. Jeff mentioned it earlier, but for example, I know this is a call that our help desk gets sometimes is we'll get somebody who's asking about an awarded solicitation, but they don't know the number. In that situation, in the current IPS, there's not really a good way of searching for that solicitation, but in the new eVP, you could literally search for just awarded, or if they have more details, like if they knew what department issued it, you could search for awarded solicitations from the Department of Administration, or so on and so forth. Once you do select your filters, you would go ahead and hit this apply button. So for example, I just selected open, and then all my search results will be open solicitations, but I know the specific solicitation number I'm looking for, so I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that document number or solicitation number into this search bar, and then hit this little magnifying glass to search for it. So my solicitation pulled up. Sometimes they may not immediately pull up because there is a 15-minute global caching situation, which basically means that solicitations traveling from the back end of eVP to this public-facing part of eVP can sometimes take up to 15 minutes. It doesn't mean that they'll always take 15 minutes. It just means that if you post something and you don't see it immediately, wait 15 minutes or so, check again. And then if you're not seeing it, that's when you should contact the help desk. But it's perfectly normal for a solicitation to maybe take up to 15 minutes to post. So then once I click on the solicitation, you'll notice that I have this red message up top that says vendors must have an active NC eProcurement registration in the electronic vendor portal to participate in a REBA sourcing event. I do see an intends to participate button, but as you can see when I hover my mouse over it, I'm not actually able to click on this. I would have to first sign in before I'd be able to click this intends to participate button. If I was signed in, I could click this intends to participate button, and all the sourcing contacts for that vendor would receive an email with a link to the specific solicitation that they could click on and then sign into their Ariba Network account or register an Ariba Network account, and then proceed to respond to the solicitation as they currently are, with them having to accept the prerequisites, answer any of the questions that are in the sourcing event, and then upload their documentation. But then as we see below that, we have some of the basic details of our solicitation, including the opening date, when it was posted, commodity code that was utilized, the description that we put in, and then the attachment, which is our completed solicitation document that we attached to our sourcing event. So again, really great. You guys no longer have to post things. We'll no longer have to post things in multiple places. You hit publish on your sourcing event on the Ariba side, and then it'll transfer over to the backend eVP and to the public-facing eVP as well. So I think this is another good place to pause for questions. Lauren, were there any questions that we wanted to address live, or should we move on to our next phase?
I think we've got them handled mostly in the chat, but thanks for checking in.
Perfect. So what we'll do now is we'll cover creating an addendum on our sourcing event. So we're going to go back to our Ariba testing environment, and we're going to go ahead and add our addendum for questions or our responses to the vendor question and answers. So just like you would normally do now, we're going to go ahead and click the blue actions button while monitoring our event. And then we're going to select edit. And then again, since I want to add my addendum for questions and answers, I'm going to go ahead and click on number 3 for content. And then I'm going to add it into our section 3. So I'm going to check the box next to section 3. Then click add attachment from desktop, and then click choose file because I want to choose which file I want to upload here. And I want to upload my answers to vendor Q&A. And then I'm going to give my new section a description. And then once I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and click this blue Done button. So now if we scroll down into section 3, we'll notice that there's a new 3.5 section here that is answers to vendor Q&A. And since that's the only change that I'm wanting to do right now, I'm just going to go ahead. I can either click this blue next button up top, or I can click on summary. And then I can click update. And then I'm going to use the keep an email option for creating this change. Because again, same thing that we're recommending currently is we want to make sure that we keep any existing vendor responses and also just notify anybody that indicated that they were intending to participate about the changes or change that we made. And now that I've added my message, I'm just going to go ahead and click update event. And then I'm going to go back to monitoring my event. So again, if we scroll down, we'll see 3.5 for answers to vendor Q&A. And then I'm actually going to go and check this one out on the back end now. So we're still looking at the solicitation in the back end, but if we weren't, we could click on solicitations from the navigation panel on the left-hand side and then search for and pull this specific solicitation up. I'm going to actually just click this refresh button from our command bar, which is this bar up top here. And then you'll notice that now we have an additional tab. We have an additional tab for our addenda. And then it actually will list the addendum that has been created. So now I'm going to actually look this one up on our, or I'm going to go back to our public facing side and take another peek at this one. And then just to kind of show you the solicitation search, I'm going to search for it one more time. So again, if I click on solicitations from this top menu, I can go ahead and since I have my solicitation number, I can go ahead and paste it right into this search box and then hit this search button. And then next, I can click on the solicitation number to actually pull it up. And just like solicitations coming over in the first place, there is a 15-minute global caching situation. So it can take up to 15 minutes for updates to make their way over to to the public-facing eVP. So I'm just going to refresh my browser one more time, and if it doesn't make its way over, then we'll move on to our next phase, which is just creating another addendum in Ariba. But I'm just going to go ahead and refresh one more time. Okay, so we'll move on. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to our Ariba testing environment, and this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually extend the timing out. So I'm going to click on this blue Actions button, and then I'm going to click Extend Timing. So then we want fixed time again, and this time, hey, you know what? We said we were giving them the 20th. We're going to extend it by a week. So we're going to give them to the 27th. And again, we still want to open our responses at 2. So now I'm going to click this blue OK button. And we'll notice our time remaining updates. And the great thing is, here's another change is, again, you don't have to go through and update this sourcing event in multiple spots to get the timing to update. You don't have to go to IPS and do it. You don't have to go to the Discovery Suppliers tab and do it. Once you do it here, just using that blue Actions button and clicking Extend Timing, it will transfer over to backend eVP. So if we refresh this side, we'll notice our opening date and time. Well, our time was still 2 p.m., but our opening date has updated to reflect the change that we made on the Ariba side. And then if we refresh our public side, we'll see if we are on the lucky side of the caching situation. It looks like we are, because our opening date has updated to 7/27 at 2 p.m. And then if we come down to our addenda section, we have both addendas listed. The first one where we added our answers to vendor Q&A, and then the second one where we updated the timing. So I'm going to actually go ahead and pause here. Lauren, were there any questions that we wanted to answer live?
We don't have any questions, no.
Perfect. So we'll go ahead and move on. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to actually go over posting a bid tabulation. So posting bid tabulations, as Jeff said, will now be done in the backend eVP. And I actually have a solicitation that we created prior to this that has already gone into a pending selection stage. So I'm going to grab that solicitation number. And then we're going to go ahead and search for our solicitation and pull it up. So again, I'm going to copy and paste my solicitation number into the search bar, hit the enter key. And then here is our solicitation. You'll notice that it is currently in a status or pending selection status. So then I'm going to pull this solicitation up. And you'll notice that we now have a tabulations tab. So as far as getting actual responses, nothing is changing for that. So you would still go back to your sourcing event and you would still open your envelopes and download your vendor responses. The thing that's changing is after you've evaluated your responses, or if you're posting your preliminary bid tabulation, you would come to the backend eVP, and then you would use the information that you gathered from opening the event on the sourcing side. And then in backend eVP, there are two options for tabulations. There's post vendor totals only, which is essentially vendor A, has this amount, vendor B has this amount. But there's also a post all bid items option. So post all bid items is vendor A had vendor A's line item 1 was for X amount, vendor A's line item 2 was for Y amount, vendor B's line item 1, and it kind of breaks it down specifically by line item. I'm going to show you post vendor totals only because I think this is going to be the one that's used most often, but we do cover posting all bid items as well as post vendor totals in our job aid. So if, when it comes time and you're trying to do that one, if you don't remember how, or it's because you've never seen it, you can definitely refer to those job aids, or as always, call our help desk and we're more than happy to help you guys through it. But again, for this specific one, I'm going to choose post vendor totals only. The other reason why I wanted to point that out to you is it can be kind of difficult to see that this is a drop down menu, that you do have another option other than post vendor totals only. But anyway, so now that I've selected post vendor totals only, which is the default, in this tabulation section, you'll notice we have this new tabulation button. So I'm going to go ahead and click new tabulation. And then you'll notice it takes you to a new tabulation screen. And the first thing it's asking for is a vendor. And for this example, I'm going to say, hey, we're actually posting our preliminary bid tabulation. So we're not actually trying to disclose the price or anything like that just yet. So now I've added my vendor. I can go ahead and just hit save and close. And then you'll see the tabulation that I just created is listed down here. But let's go ahead and let's add a second tabulation, because let's say there were 2 vendors that responded. So I'm going to hit this new tabulation button one more time. And then this time I'm going to select a different vendor. And then once I've selected the vendor, I'm going to go ahead and hit save and close. And again, this is for our preliminary bid tabulation, so we don't have any prices listed or anything like that yet. We have both of our bid tabulations, but if we had more vendors to add, we could keep hitting plus new tabulation and adding them. And then once you are finished adding vendors and tabulations, you can go ahead and up to this command bar and click post tabulation. Once you click that option, you'll get a message asking you to confirm that you want to post the bid tabulation, because once you click OK, this will start making its way over to the public eVP, and the public will be able to see the tabulations that you've created. So I do want these to post, so I'm going to go ahead and click this blue OK button. And then we'll try one time just to see if we're on the positive side of the 15-minute caching situation. Otherwise, we'll move on to how you would update those tabulations to the final bid tab. So I'm actually going to go back to my solicitation search, because we are looking for a different solicitation this time. And then I have that solicitation number. So again, I can just put that number directly into the search bar and then hit the search button. And then I can click on the solicitation number to see the details. And perfect. You'll notice that my preliminary tabulation is listed here. It has both of my vendors listed, but it doesn't give any details about price. You can actually click the drop-down arrow next to them and hit view details to view more details, but there aren't any further details to view because, again, the only thing we filled out about these tabulations was the vendor information. So now let's say it's come time for us to actually post our final bid tabulation. So what we're going to do is we're back in backend eVP, and we're looking at our solicitation, and we're specifically on our tabulations tab again, and we can see both our tabulations. What we're going to do is we're going to actually check the circle next to a vendor, and then we're going to go ahead and click this edit option. So that's going to take us back to our tabulation screen. And now we can actually update information. So if we want to put information about the delivery, we can update that. We can check the box saying it's a partial bid, check the box if they're a resident NC bidder. If there's a price matching situation, we can check the box. But what we're really interested in is the price. So I'm going to add the price to this vendor. And then we can also have a comments box. So if it's necessary to add a comment, we could, add something here. I'm not going to for this one. I'm just going to add my price and then hit save and close. So Janitor USA, their tabulation came to 75,000. So next I'm going to update janitorial consultants. So again, I'm going to check the circle next to them, click edit, come down here, and they came in at $80,000. So slightly different. But then once I've added my price and I'm okay with my tabulation, I'm going to go up to our command bar and hit save and close. And now you can see both of our vendors have their tabulations here. So we can go ahead and hit the save button just to make sure our record saves. And then again, we'll check our tabulations over here, just refreshing it one time, but with the 15-minute caching situation, we may not see them update immediately right now. Oh, but we did. So if you'll notice, our total price section updated. If we had put information in, we could see more details, and like if we added a comment, it would be visible here. If we were doing the by line item, then that would be visible there as well. In this case, we just added the price, and you can see that that is now listed in our tabulation section of our solicitation. So next, we'll actually go through awarding our solicitation out. So after posting the bid tabulation, you'll get a new column on the backend eVP for your solicitation, or a new tab. And that tab is the awards tab. So we're going to go ahead and click on the awards tab. And then you'll see that we have an all awards section listed here. And then I'm actually going to click this plus new award. And it's going to take me to an award screen. So now it's asking me for the vendor that we're awarding this contract out to. So I'm going to start typing the name of the vendor. So we're going to go with Janitors USA because they were slightly cheaper. Then we're going to add an award amount and add a date awarded. You could also add a purchasing agent, so I'm just going to add myself. And if it was applicable and you wanted to, you could also add NC City or NC County. Those aren't necessary. You could also mark this as a reciprocal preference award or as a price match award, and then fill out additional details if necessary down there as well. But now I'm just going to hit save and close. And then we'll see our award listed in the all awards section, and I can hit this post award button. Once I click OK, again, this is another confirmation message letting us know that, hey, if you click OK, this will be posted to the public eVP side of things. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And then we'll try refreshing the solicitation one more time to see if this award has come over. It has, perfect. So we can see in a new section in the solicitation for awards, and we can see that the vendor that I created the award for has been populated, as well as the award amount and date awarded. So before we move on to contract extensions, Lauren, were there any questions that we wanted to cover?
There are no questions at this time that need to be covered.
Perfect. So for contract extensions, I'm going to go back to the Ariba side of things. So I'm in our Ariba testing environment. I'm going to click on contracts, and let me go ahead and pull up the contract workspace that I created for this one. I'm going to search for the contract workspace, and I'm going to open it up. So just want to preface this section with a couple of things real quick. First of all, we're talking about contract extensions. We're not talking about contract renewals. So contract renewals are usually renewals that are already put in place in the contract when it was initially approved and negotiated. So extensions typically aren't planned in the original solicitation. You would still follow the same approval processes in the contract workspace tool. And then after that, you would create a addendum an amendment, and then update your contract attributes and term attributes and whatnot to reflect it. So I've actually created the contract workspace already, and I created the amendment because those two steps aren't changing. I updated my title slightly to reflect the year change, and then I also updated the amount and the new expiration date to reflect updating this extending this contract out for 1 year. So next, the last step is just to go ahead and click Actions and click Publish. And what will happen now is contract workspaces from Ariba will actually be posted overnight into the public eVP side of things. So I'm not going to expect that this specific janitorial service contract that I just extended will be visible on the contract workspace, or I'm sorry, contract extensions search. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pull up a contract workspace that we extended previously, just so you guys can kind of see how this looks in the contract extension search. So I'm looking for my CW number. Looks like I didn't get the full CW number there. So if I just try eVP janitorial services, you can see that this first one was one that we created, I believe, last week and extended out last week. It's now visible in the eVP system, but you'll see that it lists the original start date, original end date, the extension end date, the original contract amount, the extension amount, and then the cumulative amounts there. So again, nothing's really changing on the Ariba side of things. It's just once you actually publish that amendment, it will automatically post onto the contract extensions site for you. And it'll actually automatically post in the eVP backend. So you can see contract extensions by locating the contract extension option from the navigation panel on the left-hand side. And then you can see a bunch of contract extensions here. And you can, if you don't see yours immediately, you could search for it here. But again, they will automatically post for you. They will post overnight though. So if you're looking for it immediately, it's not going to be there, and that's expected. It will be, but it should be there the next morning. So next, we'll cover the last public search that we really haven't touched on in this webinar yet, because we've looked through solicitation search and we just saw the contract extension search. So now we'll look at our public vendor search. So to access the public vendor search, we'll click on the vendors option from up top. And then it's going to show us these initial 6 filters that we can use to search for vendors, but we also have some advanced search filters. So if we click this blue triangle next to advanced search, we can see a whole bunch more filters categorized into different categories. So we have a bunch having to do with NCE procurement. For example, you can look for specific NCE procurement registration status. So for the example we're going to use today, I am going to search for active NCE procurement registration. But you could also search for vendors based off of when they were registered. There's a bunch of filters having to do with Hub and NCSBE certifications, contractor services, contact and locations. And then at the bottom here, we have commodity codes and construction codes, which I think this is the biggest improvement on our public vendor search. In the old public vendor search, you'd have to expand every commodity code category and then check the boxes underneath the select commodity codes, or just to even see which commodity codes were underneath. What we have now is we have this add commodity codes button. So I can literally click on add commodity codes, and then I can use this search right here and just say janitor. And then it's going to pull up a whole bunch of codes that have to do with janitors, and I can check the boxes. I accidentally check a code I don't want to check, I can uncheck it here, or I can click the little X here. But once I do have the codes I want selected, I can go ahead and click this blue add button. And then the code will be visible here. So for this search, I'm looking for vendors who are active for NCE procurement and who also have the cleaning and janitorial services commodity code. So now I can go ahead and hit this blue search button. And the search may take a minute or two depending on how complex your search is and how many search results there are for your search. Perfect. But then up here in this top left-hand corner, we can see the number of records that return. So that's the number of vendors. So there are 337 vendors that return for this search. We have an export to Excel button. So if we wanted to export all these this search data into an Excel document, we could click that button and it'll download an Excel file with the data. However, if we wanted more information about a specific vendor in this search, we could actually click on the name of the vendor. And then you'll notice these tabs on the left-hand side. So let's say, hey, you know what? I want to know what other commodity codes this vendor has registered under. I can click on this commodity codes tab, and then it'll show me all the various codes that this vendor has registered under. And then let's say, hey, you know what? I want some contact information about this vendor. I can click on the contacts tab, and it'll show me all the current contacts for this company, including their email and phone numbers. So Lauren, before we move on to Hub Stats reporting, were there any questions that we wanted to cover?
I would say one of the questions I've answered in the chat was, so I just did an extension in contracts. Now, would that be done under eVP? The answer to that is no, you would still create the extension in contracts. And then once it's posted in contracts, it would automatically come to public eVP for posting.
Right, so really nothing's changing with the process. It's just once you actually publish it in Ariba, the system will automatically publish that onto the public eVP and over into the backend eVP for you.
That's all the questions.
Perfect. So right now, we have a member of our team that's actually manipulating my permissions in the backend eVP so we can show you guys the hub statistics reporting. We also realize that this section may not be applicable to all the people that are currently attending. It may be, you know, a niche category, but it's definitely an important one. So we kind of want to show you guys a little bit about it so that we can go ahead and, so I'm going to go ahead and refresh my browser just so I can update my permissions. I have to refresh it one more time. Perfect. But now you'll see on our left-hand side that we have a HUD management category and we have hub statistics specifically in it. So if I click on this hub statistics option, we can see that there is already a record listed here in active hub stats. And basically that's because the system will create a hub statistics record for you on the first day of the quarter for the previous quarter. So if I click into this record, you'll notice that some of the data is already filled out here. And this data, if it's already filled out, will come from the hub spending report system. So if your entity reports your data there, then when your hub record is kind of created on the eVP side, you'll see that it may be pre-populated with that data. And if it is pre-populated, then it becomes more of a review and update as necessary before submitting. But regardless of if it's pre-populated or not, you can click into each field and actually update things. So let's say, you know what, hey, we actually did $10,000 in the black category for term contract purchases. I could update that and then update my term contract purchases total. Any fields that have a lock symbol next to them are fields that you can actually click in and directly edit. Most of these fields will be automatically calculated based on the information you put on the left-hand side here, but they won't actually calculate until you hit the save button. So let me continue going through this term contract purchases section and make a couple more updates. So I'm also going to say that, hey, you know what, we did $5,000 with American Indian. Let me go ahead and update this to 82,760. And then I'm going to go ahead and now click this save button, and we should see the black percentage and the American Indian percentage update. And then we'll also see that this term contract purchases updates. So again, these locked fields will calculate based on the values that we input on this left-hand side. So I'm going to continue scrolling down, and our next section is for commodity purchases. The top field being just the total commodity purchases, both hub and non-hub. But what I can do is I can come in here and I can make updates. So let's say, hey, you know what, we did $25,000 with American Indian and $25,000 with, I'm sorry, $25,000 with Asian American and $25,000 with American Indian. And since we have $50,000 more to account for, we can update this to reflect that. And then I'm going to hit save again, and then we should see our category percentages update, and then also our commodity purchase update. So then we have one last section, and that's our service purchases. So our first field right here in this category is the total of hub and non-hub. But as always, we can update that. So let's say, we actually didn't do any American Indian business. It was Asian American. We can shift that around, and I can add $10,000 to Hispanic and make my update. Go ahead and hit save. And then you'll notice that it updates accordingly. So if you do get interrupted, you could always hit save and close and come out of here and then come back into it and continue working on it. But after you've reviewed it and made any necessary updates or just input your data in the first place, the last thing the step to do is to hit this approve option from the command bar. Once you do hit approve, the status reason will change from pending, and then the approved by and approved on fields will pre-populate. So I'm going to go ahead and hit approve. And all right, so now our status reason submitted because we've submitted our hub statistics report. And then the approved by will update to the name of the user who approved it, and the approved on and will update to the date and time that I hit that approve button. So I think Jeff will now take over, but before he does, were there any other questions, Lauren, that we wanted to answer live?
We are adjusting the questions that are coming in, so I think we can move along.
Perfect. So Jeff, if you want to take back over and kind of go over our wrap up and additional steps, should be good to go.
All right. Let me share my screen here and get online. So that was great. Thank you so much, Zach. And I know, I think it's super exciting just that for not having to have discovery anymore and all of that, and that you're choosing one vendor unless it's one of your specific waiver competition ones, and those automatically, based on the solicitation vehicle you select, the system automatically knows not to bring those over publicly. So you will directly invite your vendors. We've got steps on how to do that in our job aid, but I think that's really great that now that process is automated for you, which I think is fantastic. So just some next steps here. July 10th is go live. So we've been sending out some communications to try to wrap up your, the last day of putting out solicitations in the current IPS. To announce them or to the public is going to be tomorrow. So if you do not get your solicitation in by tomorrow, then you will wait until July 10th, and that would be the first day that you could post those. But if there's nothing urgent, that might be better. That means everything's in one site for the vendors, but existing things that are opening up are going to be automatically converted for you. So, a couple takeaways as we go through this, just that auto posting is going to be fantastic for events and addendums and your contract extensions, should you need those. But the approval process and the build-up process, that's all the same way. You've been working in the procurement system now for most of you for several years now, and that whole sourcing project, you're still going to start there. It's just when you get ready to post that event, that part is changing. And then we're going to be here to help you. So we've helped a lot of you through the last couple of years when changes have occurred, and the system has been evolving over the past years. This is just another step in the evolving, and there's always a little bit of a learning curve. And when you first get into it, it may be new, but you will adjust. We all adjust, and down the road, this is going to be a really great benefit for both the state and the vendors in just kind of streamlining things and upgrading our technology to where we have a lot more flexibility with stuff. So don't be afraid to reach out to the help desk with specific questions. We are going to download these questions and get some answers to them in writing if we were not able to get them to you or answer them in the session today. And we will get a recording done and post that link. And so we will be following up there, and our job aids are being updated and our help desk is being prepared. And so we wish you a good holiday week next week, and we will be turning on the new system on July 10th. So thanks to everybody for attending, And thanks for your time. And thanks to Zach and Lauren, Amanda, and Afua for managing the Q&A. And we will see you guys later. All right. Thank you so much.